Okay, let's unpack this Rayan Cherki situation. His name is definitely buzzing around the football world right now.
Absolutely.
And today we're diving deep into why he's this 21-year-old attacking midfielder at Lyon. And yeah, he's caught the eye of some really big clubs.
Big heavyweights, yeah.
Liverpool, Manchester United, Tottenham. They're all reportedly keen. And then you've got Bayern Munich and PSG apparently sniffing around too.
Right.
You shared a great set of sources. And what's really got my attention is this talk, him being a potential future Ballon d'Or winner, but also potentially available for, well, a surprisingly low fee. So our mission today really is to get past the headlines.
Yeah, cut through the noise.
Exactly. Give you a clear picture of his talent, what's going on at Lyon, and, why this whole transfer story is one you need to keep an eye on.
Definitely. And the sources we have give us a really good foundation for that. We've got scouting reports from places like Breaking the Lines, transfer news from Give Me Sport, Caught Offside.
Right, the transfer specialists.
Yeah, stats breakdowns from Goal.com. We've even got fan views from a Man United Reddit thread, which is always interesting.
Always good for a bit of a unfiltered opinion.
For sure. And then the French angle from Get French Football News and Bouaksib, plus that Chinese news outlet you mentioned. So it's a good mix.
Yeah, really broad range. Okay, so that future Ballon d'Or winner line, you don't hear that every day, especially for someone just 21. Give Me Sport says that came from journalist Benjamin Correz. But looking at Breaking the Lines, it feels like there might actually be, real substance there. What stood out to you from how they described his actual skills?
Well, what's striking is just how consistently his raw talent is praised. Breaking the Lines goes as far as calling him potentially the most naturally gifted player in world football currently.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
It is. They talk about his top-tier technical ability, how good he is in 1v1s in those really tight spaces. That ambidextrous ability comes up too, which fans also noted.
Both feet, yeah. Always a plus.
It's huge plus. And Goal.com reminds us, he wasn't just hyped recently. He was once talked about alongside Mbappe and Messi, a football manager wonder kid.
The FM wonder kid tag. That takes me back. So the potential's been recognized for a while then.
Exactly. It's not just a flash in the pan.
And it's more than just looking flashy, right? Seems like he delivers actual end product. Breaking the Lines mentioned he's one of the top ball carriers in Europe. And top 3% for expected goals assisted in League One.
Yeah, and that's key. It shows he's not just dribbling for show. He's actually creating chances, making things happen. It points towards a certain effectiveness in his game.
He influences the game.
Absolutely. That Breaking the Lines example is perfect. 3 PSG defenders drawn to him, freeing up a teammate to score. That tells you the kind of threat opponents think he is.
When you need multiple players to stop one guy.
Exactly. And they also mention, while he's not exceptionally fast, he does have the physical strength to hold off defenders.
Yeah.
That's crucial for making those technical skills count in the final third.
Okay, the hype is definitely there, backed by some serious skill descriptions. But what are the actual stats, the hard numbers? Give Me Sport laid out his League One season for 24-25, 29 games, 8 goals, 10 assists.
And 19 goal-creating actions. That's a really telling stat.
Yeah, in just under 2,000 minutes. Pretty productive.
Yep.
His overall numbers across all competitions paint a similar picture.
They do, generally.
Yeah.
Give Me Sport totals it up as 12 goals and 19 assists in 43 appearances this season, all comps.
Okay.
The Chinese outlet had slightly different figures, 11 goals, 18 assists in 38 matches. But they also flagged up a high number of chances created, like 20 in League One, 14 in the Europa League.
So creating opportunities consistently.
Right. And Goal.com just bundles it as contributing to 27 goals overall. So yeah, the exact figures might vary slightly source to source, but the story is clear. Young player, consistently involved in goals and assists for Lyon.
Okay, so that kind of talent, that kind of output, naturally clubs are going to be interested. Give Me Sport said Liverpool have actually made an inquiry.
Yeah, an inquiry about availability. And they're named alongside Man City and Tottenham as clubs monitoring him closely. So this sounds like more than just, casual scouting.
More than just adding him to a long list.
Seems like it. And Caught Offside suggests it's even more active than that. They report Cherki's agents have approached both Liverpool and Manchester United.
Oh, interesting. So pushing for a move, perhaps?
Potentially. Caught Offside also throws in Man City, Tottenham, Newcastle, Bayern, and PSG into the ring, that same list the Chinese source mentioned.
So a lot of big names keeping tabs.
Definitely. And Liverpool.com made that point about him fitting Liverpool's opportunistic transfer style, which maybe hints they see an angle here.
An angle, like maybe related to his contract or Lyon's situation.
Could be. And obviously the Man United Reddit thread shows the fans are certainly talking about him, weighing up if he'd fit at Old Trafford.
Right. Which brings us to the big question, doesn't it? With all this talent and interest from top clubs, why are we hearing he might be available, relatively speaking, on the cheap?
Yeah, that's the really intriguing part.
Get French Football News had some really good context on this. Sounds like it's tied up with his contract.
Exactly right. Get French Football News lays it out pretty clearly.
Yeah.
That reported 22.5 million release clause. It wasn't just Lyon thinking that's his value.
No.
Well, partly, maybe. But Boaxib does paint a pretty grim picture of Lyon's finances, huge debt, needing to raise cash fast to avoid trouble. That's definitely a factor.
Financial pressure.
But the clause itself seems to have come from a compromise. When he signed his last extension, just a one-year deal with an option, it was after a bit of a standoff.
Ah, okay.
He had less than a year left on his old deal. A move to Dortmund apparently fell through, and Lyon basically couldn't risk losing him for free. So they agreed to this extension, but with that lower release clause baked in.
A compromise to keep him, but giving him an exit route.
Pretty much. And Fabrizio Romano, quoted by Breaking the Lines, has also flagged that 22.5 million figure as a potential fee. The Reddit guys picked up on Lyon's money troubles too, seeing it as leverage for buyers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a mix of things making him look like a potential bargain.
Fascinating. So huge talent, potentially a bargain price. But, okay, let's dig into Cherki, the player, a bit more. We've heard about the skills, the output, but that Reddit discussion raised some fair points about weaknesses too, didn't it? And how he fits tactically.
Yeah, and this is where it gets maybe a bit more complicated. The fan discussion flagged concerns poor off-the-ball work, maybe hold on to the ball too long sometimes.
The classic flair player dilemma.
Sometimes, yeah. And they mentioned a questionable attitude. Breaking the Lines really dives into the tactical fit problem. They say he has this reputation, being a bit of a passenger in defense, a reluctant presser.
Oof. That's not ideal in the modern game.
Not really. Though Breaking the Lines does add there have been some signs of improvement there. But it raises that big question. Can a top team really carry a player who might not pull his weight defensively?
That defensive side. It keeps coming up. Breaking the Lines noted he did well under coaches like Laurent Blanc, right? Someone who gave him more freedom.
Exactly. Blanc apparently gave him license to roam, minimal defensive duties. But under coaches who want more structure, more aggressive pressing, like Fabio Grosso has mentioned,
yeah,
he reportedly struggled. Breaking the Lines says Grosso even froze him out at one point. And even the current Lyon coach, Pierre Auge, publicly mentioned Cherki's defensive work rate as a reason for subbing him against PSG, despite his attacking threat.
So it's a consistent theme across different managers.
It seems to be. The fan discussions echo that worry too. Lack of pressing, tactical discipline, especially for teams needing that collective effort. So, yeah, any club signing him needs a very clear plan for how they're going to use him, how they'll manage that defensive side.
Right. The manager needs to know what they're getting into and how to handle it. Okay, so what about the player himself? Where does Rayan Cherki actually want to go? Gimme Sports said he's keen on a move to Anfield, Liverpool.
Yeah, that was one report. But then the Chinese news outlet suggested he might actually prefer Manchester United, though they did add that Liverpool's sort of ambition could sway him. So conflicting signals there.
Okay, not clear-cut then.
Not at all. And Liverpool.com quoted Cherki himself being pretty vague about his Lyon future, just saying, we'll see at the end of the season if I'm still here or not.
Playing his cards close to his chest.
Seems like it. The Reddit chat threw in more confusion. One person remembered him favoring PSG in the past because of French connections. Another claimed he now prefers Liverpool.
Right, so lots of speculation.
And a caught offside mentioned that failed Dortmund move back in January, suggesting the Premier League clubs have a fresh chance now. So yeah, his actual preference, it seems very much up in the air. Could depend on the project, the offer, the manager.
Makes sense. Okay, let's zoom in on those specific clubs. Liverpool first. The Chinese outlet suggested they urgently need a creative attacker, maybe with Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving. Although, like you said, Gimme Sport mentioned Frimpong as a replacement for Trent.
Yeah, the specifics there are a bit hazy across sources.
But regardless, the Chinese source felt Cherki's versatility playing midfield, covering the right wing if Salah's out, could be perfect for Liverpool.
Yeah, that versatility argument makes sense. And caught offside framed him as maybe a more realistic, cheaper alternative to Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen for Liverpool. Similar creative players, play with flair.
Right. Maybe a similar profile, but more attainable.
Potentially. And it loops back to that Liverpool.com point about him fitting their opportunistic strategy, especially if Lyon really are under pressure to sell for that lower fee. It feels like Liverpool might view it as a calculated gamble, high potential upside for a reasonable price.
Okay, and what about Manchester United? Caught Offside said he impressed them in their Europa League games against Lyon.
Yeah, apparently he caught the eye then, and United are tempted.
Yeah.
They might see him as an upgrade on players they've loaned out or who haven't performed.
Yeah, like there's always a but with United transfers lately, it feels like.
Well, the Chinese outlet raised a fair point. United's inconsistency lately might actually make them less appealing to Cherki himself.
Ah, the stability factor.
Exactly. They suggested United really need to show a clear plan, offer a good contract to convince him. And that Reddit discussion is gold here, a proper debate among fans. Is his technical brilliance worth the risk, given the attitude and defensive concerns?
Especially under a new manager's system, potentially.
Right. Opinions were really split. Some see him as high risk, but maybe worth it at that price. Others worry he'd just be another inconsistent flair player who needs everything built around him to succeed.
A gamble, then. Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. Rayan Cherki, undeniably talented, loads of attacking flair. The stats back it up.
Impressive stats, yeah.
But definite question marks hanging over his attitude, his defensive work rate.
Big questions, yeah.
Still, he's absolutely on the radar of some massive clubs, especially from the Premier League. And the really surprising bit is he might be available for a pretty low fee because of his contract and Lyon's money troubles.
Yeah, what really stands out for me is that contrast. You've got almost everyone agreeing he has exceptional, fundamental talent. The future Ballon d'Or buzz isn't entirely baseless.
Right.
But then you have these persistent doubts about his application, his tactical discipline. It really makes you wonder which manager, which club is going to be able to unlock all that potential. And can they build a system that actually works with his style, rather than trying to force him into a mold?
That's the $1 million, well, maybe the $22.5 million question.
Exactly. The low fee makes him tempting, a potential steal. But those reported attitude issues, the defensive questions, that's a definite risk clubs have to weigh up. Although those Europa League performances, even against United, showed what he can do on a bigger stage.
A tantalizing glimpse. So for you listening, as you follow this story, and it does feel like one to watch this summer, maybe think about this. In today's football, with pressing and tactical shape being so vital, how much should clubs value that pure, raw attacking magic if it comes with, defensive compromises?
It's a huge tactical question.
And for clubs like Liverpool, like Manchester United, who are trying to rebuild or push on to challenge right at the very top, is a high-risk, high-reward player like Cherki the smart bet? Or do they need someone more reliable, more defensively sound, even if maybe less spectacular?
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of team building, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What kind of player profiles do you prioritize in the modern game? It'll be fascinating to see where he ends up.